High school football season is here, and Sports on Tap has you covered all season long with in-depth coverage and analysis. You won't want to miss our special football shows each Monday of the high school season from 7:30 to 9 p.m. Catch recaps of all the games, interviews with local players and coaches, and hear if your team is playing in the game of the week. For the best high school football coverage, turn to Sports on Tap. Every Monday from 7:30 to 9 p.m. Sports on Tap, part of the NEO Sports Insiders Network.
And welcome to Sports on Tap. We're part of the NEO Sports Insiders Network. It's our high school football coverage. Week 1 in the books. Week 2, we look ahead coming up. I'm Rob Troutman. We have Ed Dick, Josh Effie, Sean Duffy, and Studio J in Brunswick, Ohio.
What's up?
Yo.
Greetings.
And guys, Week 1 in the books. Just overall initial thoughts on Week 1. I remember last year, low-scoring games in the first few weeks. Seemed like this week there were some pretty high scores to begin with in some of these games.
A lot of close games too. A lot of close games. I was amazed by a lot of the close games.
Yeah, I mean, both ways too. You had a lot of barn burners. You had a lot of scoring and lots of close games. I mean, you definitely tell that there's some rust there on the defensive end for some teams. Some teams' offenses were really humming along there as if they were just picking up right where they left off from last season, and I expect that to level out here once especially once you get into conference play when you gotten familiar opponents again. But it was a great night for football. I mean, it was
perfect.
It was
the
not
weather
terribly hot. It was not terribly humid. It was a beautiful night, especially over at Judy Kirsch Field in Brunswick Elmar Stadium, which we will talk about here shortly.
Yeah,
Yes.
more in depth later on in the show also.
Well, first off, I want to thank everyone out there who checked out our video, our story from Sean Duffy. Josh Jeffy was all over social media taking video and pictures and keeping the game up to date, and I thought it was just a great night of football, but not only for us, but for everyone out there who joined in and favorited and retweeted everything that we had. I mean, thank you for being part of our not show, but part of our high school football coverage.
I would like to thank the 4 or 5 parents that came up to me personally when I was sitting in the stands trying to cover the game and thought that I was a scout for the University of Notre Dame.
They might have thought you were the leprechaun.
Well, I just had a hat on.
leprechaun.
I just had a hat on, and I had a notebook, and I'm writing stuff down. I had 3 or 4 parents go up to me like, "Oh, you scouting for the Irish?" And I'm like, No, I'm not. I'm just writing.
How bad, though, did you want to say yes?
I almost did. The last time I was asked,
I might have.
Yep, Brian Kelly sent me out here to scout Jacob Martin or whoever.
Yeah, there you go.
I was not a scout. I was simply sitting in the stands trying to get the feel of the game, and I was able to do that with a great crowd at Brunswick.
All right. Now let's head over to Josh Jeffy. He's going to give us Week 1 of the Greater Cleveland Conference. And, Josh, some pretty good games over there.
Yeah, it's good to be back covering the GCC for year number 2. Starting on this past Thursday, last Thursday actually, 2 GCC teams were in action. We're going to start with Shaker Heights. They played Skyline out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. Now, Skyline has Hunter Rising. Hunter Rising, you might recognize that last name. Yes, that is the son of former Browns wide receiver Andre Rison, Michigan State recruit. He did have 2 touchdowns in this game, but that was not enough to handle the Red Raiders of Shaker Heights as they go on to defeat Skyline 35-19. Terrence Colvin, 2 kick returns for touchdown. One was a kickoff return. The other one was a punt return. So good for them. Shaker new quarterback, Jameer Demukes, 1 running touchdown, 1 passing touchdown. Again, as the Red Raiders start off 2016 with a 35-19 victory. The other GCC team that was in action on Thursday was the Euclid Panthers as they defeated a revenge game of sorts, the Glenville Tarblooders. They won 13-7. Now, Euclid, the defense, forced a turnover on downs. There were 1:38 left in the game. The ball was on the Euclid 12-yard line, and the Euclid defense forced Glenville to turn the ball over on 4th down, so that pretty much saved the game for them, capped off a victory. Euclid quarterback Noah Mitchell, two touchdown passes in this game. And again, as I mentioned, this is kind of a revenge game for the Panthers, as last year they lost to Glenville 36-19. But for a good young Euclid team, this is a very good victory to start off 2016. Now we move to Friday night action. We're going to start Medina, the Bees, 55-0 over Lakewood. Running back Jimmy Daw, 5 touchdowns in this game. Really not much of a game as the Bees led 49-0 at halftime. So that one was not pretty if you were a fan of Lakewood. A very good game was in Menor as the Cardinals took on the Massillon Tigers, winning 57-31. Now, Menor was led by senior running back Isaiah Gullick. He had 5 touchdowns, 238 yards on 20 attempts. Now, last year he just managed 8 carries because he was behind some very good running backs in Menor. So this was really his first opportunity to take the reins as the Menor lead running back, and he really took advantage of that. Our good friend Tadas Tatarunas had 2 touchdown passes in this game. He only completed 5 passes. 2 of them, though, were for touchdowns. So Menor
good ratio.
Took this one from the Tigers. A very, very good game. Avon Lake defeated Elyria 23-21. Now, Elyria led with 1 minute 15 seconds left in the game. And then Avon Lake came down, scored late. And that was the overall winning score of the game. Elyria running back Chris Atkinson, who many thought would be one of the top runners in the area, left the game in the second quarter with an injury. Quarterback for Elyria, Dante Beckett, had 218 yards of the total 300 yards for Elyria. So this was a very hard, tough match, Ed. This is probably some of that rust that you were talking about. But Avon Lake comes out on top 23-21. Avon defeated Strongsville 21-14. Strongsville touchdowns by Callahan Hinckley. That's a great name. That was a rushing touchdown and a 95-yard kick return by Joe Gillette. We'll actually be seeing Strongsville a little bit later on this week. We'll talk about that later on. No spoilers here. A game, again, we'll also talk about later on in the show here. Brunswick defeated Highland 17-14. Jake Martin, 24 rushes, 189 yards, 2 touchdowns. Tim Dick, 27-yard field goal to start the scoring for the Brunswick Blue Devils. And yes, Rob, as a reminder, you caught all that action on the Facebook and Twitter feed for Sports on Tap at SOT Podcast. Some good action there. My spotlight game of the week was the Solon Comets as they defeated Aurora 36-6. Again, this was a revenge game from last year. Quarterback with a great name, another great name, Joe Bubonics, was 13 for 17, 246 yards, 4 touchdowns. Wide receiver, Jake McCurry, 3 receptions, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns. This was my spotlight game, but it wasn't very much of a game. Solon kind of coming in. Solon's got a very much a veteran team coming in strong, defeating Aurora this year. Yeah. So some interesting games, to say the least. 6 out of the 8 teams with victories. Strongsville and Elyria looking to come back this week to avenge their Week 1 losses.
Yeah, there are a lot of good games. You know, I was a little surprised Euclid, held Glenville to 7 points. Mm-hmm. That's a tough Glenville team that always has athletes, put up a lot of points a lot of times.
Yeah, Euclid's got some dudes on their team. Me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's that was a good victory for Euclid. They are a very, very young team this year, and to come out and play against, like you said, Glenville, who's notoriously got really high-level D1 talent, come out with a good victory, that could catapult them this season.
Well, and I think with Menor, you thought Tatarunas would have a huge day. Instead, it was the running back that put up, 200-plus yards.
Isaiah Gullick,
that says a lot about that Menor team. They're dangerous from all over the place. They lost some players, but I think with their quarterback and a running back, obviously the offensive line did some work to open up holes whenever you run for 240-something yards. That's pretty impressive.
Well, and like Ed said, Glenville, they have some dudes on the team. This is the same thing with Menor. Coach Trevisano out there in Menor kind of just has a revolving door of talent that comes in every year. Tatarunas is just a junior, so, he's only going to get better. And like I said, the running back Isaiah Gullick, this is his first opportunity. He is a senior. Did not have that opportunity in the past, but he made the most of it. Now let's see what he can do next week. They got a very tough matchup going against St. Ignatius.
And I thought Brunswick Highland, we were there for that game. I thought Brunswick started off a little bit slow. Actually, both teams started off slow, but it started to pick up a little bit. The action picked up. I thought middle and end of the games, what a huge stop it was. I thought going into halftime, Brunswick holding Highland to 0 points in the red zone, especially I thought maybe they mismanaged the clock a little bit. Before half, they tried for the end zone. It was way out, and Brunswick escaped with no points, giving up no points to Highland there. I thought that was a huge hold before half, and Brunswick came out in the second half and really found their peak there.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Brunswick Highland game a little bit later on the show because that was our game of the week, and we were there, as we mentioned. Just to quickly go over what the GCC looks like in week number 2. As I mentioned, Menor travels to St. Ignatius that's a pretty big game. Solon will host Twinsburg. Elyria will host Lorraine. That's a pretty big game, especially for Elyria. Hudson travels to Strongsville. We'll talk about that one a little later as well. Aurora will travel to Euclid. Brunswick will travel to Austintown Fitch in that yearly battle, it seems. Medina plays host to Kenston, and Shaker Heights plays John Adams. So some very winnable games for the GCC teams. We'll see what happens. As of right now, early favorites for the Spotlight game. Of course, you have Menor Ignatius, but Plan B, I'm really looking at that Elyria-Lorraine game. I want to see how Elyria bounces back because there are some aspirations for that Elyria team to be a playoff team. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, and you look at a Lorraine team. Lorraine team stuck it out with Midview. They actually had the lead most of that game. We'll get into coming up. But Elyria, a tough loss to Avon Lake. I wondered how Avon Lake would come out and fire in that game because they had a tough few years, of just not being a great football team. Dave DeLuga said they're looking to turn it around, and I think the players want to this year. So that would be a pretty good matchup there.
And one other thing I'm looking forward to with the Greater Cleveland Conference is, Shaker Heights last year started out 3-0. They won all their non-conference games, and they were not able to sustain that going into that tough conference schedule. So I'm really interested in seeing if they'll be able to put together the same type of non-conference undefeated, and then going, and take that momentum into the conference play in week 4.
Well, coming up, we're going to talk about the Southwestern Conference, and they don't waste much time getting into their conference play. They play one non-conference game, and they jump right into the Southwestern Conference schedule. So we'll talk about the Southwestern Conference coming up. Josh Jeffy breaking it down with the Greater Cleveland Conference.
Still got to get in the regular season mode.
That's all right.
My bad.
Hey, it sounded fluent. All right, we'll step away, take a short break. The Southwestern Conference coming up. We're Sports on Tap, part of the NEO Sports Insiders Network. It's our high school football coverage.